Tim Loe and the South Wairarapa property Oporua have come a long way in their 22 years together. One block of the original sheep and beef farm is now a 189 hectare or 163 hectare effective dairy farm owned since 2005 by Tim, his wife Joe and two equity share partners. The 202 hectare support block 2 kilometres up the road is used for a combination of cropping, supplementary feed supply and fattening grazing. 3 years after arriving, Tim began farming some of his own stock on the property. Judges describe a well-organised farming operation. It's a dairying business that ticks all the boxes for Fonterra's best farm practices, and the owners have created a strong net equity, a viable and sustainable structure. When the dairy farm was converted 15 years ago, Tim went from dry stock farm manager to 50-50 share milker. He did all the development for the conversion, installing the necessary drainage, fencing and water systems. Originally 326 cows were milked, but that number has lifted to 528 Friesians this season. Production in the past few years has been up to 194,000 kgs of milk solids. The dairy farm has irrigation over half of its area and a spray effluent irrigation system over 26 hectares. The leased block is the same contour with around 20 hectares of sandhill ridges. It's used for growing crops of barley or peas for sale, triticale for silage of the Oporua herd and rearing and fattening bull calves. Tim and Joe have a deep appreciation of the place on which they have brought up their 4 children. They took their first step into ownership of the land 2 years after the dairy conversion. 4 years ago, the Loes lifted their share to 40%, creating a new equity partnership with Bruce McKenzie and Mike Falloon. When Tim first arrived, the farm was in a native state with no power and water and had never been ploughed. There are unprotected native trees which Tim has gradually worked to protect, in 4 blocks totalling 10.8 hectares, with native birds evident, creating impressive aesthetics. They use the Overseer program, soil test annually, and keep nitrogen application to a minimum. Tim has a good understanding of the property's soils, and half the farm is irrigated, striving for a good balance. He has devised an innovative system to counter the heavy iron content in the farm's water supply. Tim and Joe both enjoy the community they live in. Tim values the farm's full-time staff, Rob Vickers, the dairy unit manager, Ray Fryer and Josh Lloyd.